Hi, everyone. Welcome. How are you today? Please put in the chat where you're joining us from. Today, I'm at home in Seattle. Haven't been traveling lately. Kat, where are you today?
I'm in the Bay Area, particularly the East Bay, Berkeley, Oakland area. So if there's any other Californians in the house,
Oh,
any other Northern Californians in the house, I see we have a lot of Seattle folks.
yeah, Seattle and North
Charlotte.
Carolina. I saw Las Vegas, Hood River. Hi, Julie from Seattle, Yansville, Washington, all over. Yeah, a lot. Oh, Texas, Bozeman, one of my favorite places. San Diego. Thank you all for joining us so much. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm so happy that you're here today. My name is Joni Parsons, and I am the founder of Revel 11. We created Revel 11 about 7 years ago to build a women's community to talk about things that matter to women, everything from lifestyle and health, wellness, adventure, and so much more. Today, we're talking about building friendships. And in a world where loneliness is an epidemic, we are here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. There are useful insights and practical tips you can use to navigate meaningful connections. And let me tell you some of these staggering statistics, and let me read for just a moment. In 2022, 58% of Americans report feeling lonely some or all of the time. That's just so staggering, Kat. 1 in 4 Americans feel like there's no one they can talk to or no one that understands them, which is just makes my heart hurt. And 1 in 5 report that they rarely or never feel close to people. Staggering. So, wow, do we ever need Kat Vellos more than ever? She is the author of the book, We Should Get Together, The Secret to Cultivating Better Friendships. And I have to tell you, it's such a fun, engaging read. And anyway, just get it. It's just fabulous. She is a certified connection coach and facilitator who offers thoughtfully designed programs that will help you create the friendships you've been wishing for. Kat has been featured in the New York Times, NPR, at Revel 11, and many more. Welcome, Kat. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Revel 11, for having me back. I know this is not our first time hanging out together, but it's
Well,
always
you're
a
one of
joy.
our favorites, Kat, so it's always fun to have you back. I'm so thrilled to see you. So before we get started, we'd love for the audience to share in the chat today what brought you here. What brought you here today to listen to Kat? So what brought you here today? So please share in the chat. I've got to tell you, I mean, I think that friendships are so hard to build in this day and age of social media. We're all so crazy busy. And, you know, it's so important to remember that friendships are the most important things in our lives. So let's look at the chat here. So Holly said, I love your book and implemented your ideas. Um, I've been to other CAT events before and always love hearing about connection advice. So let's go ahead and talk about other reasons why people come to events like this, Kat.
Yeah. I'm seeing some more folks saying they wanted to make some friends, feeling disconnected. So the title spoke to them, want to make friends in Washington. So Washington folks can connect in the chat. Someone else said, I'm seeking new friendships and sustaining existing friends. You are in the right place. That's exactly what we're going to get into today. Talking
Would
about
love to
creating.
strengthen existing ties and expand my friend group. All of these things are so important. Someone just said they had a painful breakup and realized our friendship was too one-sided. So all of these things are super important to be considering today as we're talking about friendships. The second question is share a moment that you have shared recently with a friend. And why did you ask that question in particular, Kat?
I think it's important for folks to take just like a moment to reflect as life is going on, day-to-day life is happening, take a moment to notice and recognize and appreciate those sweet moments that we share with a friend, whether it's something as tiny as like a meme that your friend texted you this last couple of days, or I know I've had a lot of those with friends lately, especially the last couple of days, or just like being there together through like a hard conversation, or being there for someone in a time of support, or it can be sharing a meal. Like having the awareness to recognize when we are having access to connection is really good for our nervous system. And it's really good for helping us realize that we do have connection around us, and that this person that matters to us, that we have evidence of having spent meaningful, positive time with, is someone that we can continue to go to share more of that in the future.
And just, recognizing and feeling grateful for those moments. And those moments are the ones that matter. So a friend of 38 years calling me to chat the other day. Thank you, Cindy. Lunch with a fairly new friend yesterday. Thank you, Holly. Exchanging sweet treats with a friend who I don't get to see in person very much. Sasha, we appreciate your comment. Being there for a friend when she lost her cat. And empathizing in birth stories without judgment and painting it pretty. Ooh, that's good. So many lovely connections. I've had a friend of mine just in the neighborhood, relatively new friend. She just got dengue fever of all things. And I've spent more time with her recently, and it's just felt so good to be there for her in kind of a downtime. Very nice. I'm sorry she's sick, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Shared with my closest friend yesterday an idea that I am seeking support with, knowing she will be there for me. So all beautiful moments. So Kat, your book is so beautiful, and it's such a reminder of the importance of friendship. Again, like I said, in a world that is pulling us in so many directions with social media, with our jobs, with commitments and obligations. So I would love for you to take us through a workshop today that will help us really get to the root of friendship.
Thank
And
you
a
so
meaningful one at that.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for continuing to value friendship, and for the things that you do at Revel 11 to help other folks find community, find connection, find friendship through the amazing programs and things that you do to help people who have these common values and interests connect with each other. So I want to give a shout out to you and some appreciation for you as well. So to get started today, I know some folks shared in the chat that they already are familiar with my work or have read the book, and that's great. And I also know that there's some folks here for whom this might be our first time meeting, and you're like, who is this person? Who is Kat? Why should I listen to her? So I'm just going to do like a brief intro to get started, and then we'll dive right in for our webinar today. I'd like you to think of today as a friendship spa treatment. So, well, just because you went to the spa once doesn't mean you never need to go again. So whether you're new to the idea of like thinking about friendship, practicing friendship, like learning, setting up those skills and practice them, or whether it's just like your first time at the friendship spa, like you are in the right place. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, as Joni said, I'm the author and illustrator of this book, We Should Get Together, The Secret to Better Friendships. Often one of the first questions people ask me is like, why did you write this book? So I'm going to give you the little like mini story of how that happened, and then we'll dive in. So back in 2014, 10 years ago, I can't believe it, I moved to the Bay Area. This is me like fresh off the plane from coming from Hawaii, where I'd been living in an intentional community, dropped into super energetic, like thriving, energetic, crowded San Francisco, completely different than living in the jungle. And at first, things were really easy for me. I was going to a lot of events. This year is Pride in Dolores Park in San Francisco. Lots of people, lots of events, lots of like brunches and lunches and dinners and art openings. I was meeting a lot of people. And at first, it was not that strange for me. I've moved a lot and I never really had a hard time making friends. But then things changed pretty quickly. And what happened is that a lot of my friends started moving away, because what I didn't know is that the Bay Area is a really transient area. People come and they stay for like a year or two or three and they leave. And so this illustration is actually like based on a lot of the cities that many of my friends here in the Bay were leaving for. And I felt like I was suddenly moving to a new city all the time because I had to start over making friends a lot. And I would ask other people how friendship is going for them. And they were like, oh, it's kind of rough, actually. They had different frustrations or different complaints. And they were talking about stuff like this, right? My friend has a baby, I never see them anymore. Or they're in a relationship, they never come out anymore or text me. Or I only see my friends on social media, or everyone's too busy to hang out, or I'm kind of lonely and it sucks, but it's kind of addicting. It's easy to stay home and not go out. And so all of these challenges really stuck in my head a lot. I'm a big giant nerd, and I could not stop thinking about this question: why is adult friendship so hard? It was playing in my mind as like the headline news every day back in 2015. Back then, this was not in the news. Nowadays, we see it a lot more. But I got a little obsessed with this. And so what I decided to do, since my day job was working as a UX designer, the simplest way to describe that is making a complex process simpler and easier for people. This is blurry on purpose for privacy reasons, but this is what it looks like. It's taking a really messy, thorny problem and saying, how can we make it as smooth and simple for people as possible? And I was like, let's do that for friendship. So qualitative research is the same thing Brene Brown does. It's what I do. And I did the same thing for this question of making friendship easier. I spoke to adults around the country, did a national survey on friendship, did tons of qualitative interviews, and eventually had all of these findings, all of like best practices, studied a lot of quantitative research as well about human connection, wrote it, illustrated it, got a great editor, and I put it out because I really want to help you have fulfilling friendships. If this is the only conversation we ever have, or my book is the only thing you ever read, that might be enough. There's also ways to do more. If you want, I'll tell you at the end about a way that we could work together. But literally, this is enough for you to get started. So I'm going to give you, in the next hour-ish, I'm going to give you like a download of a lot of my best knowledge, a lot of the best like practices, things, tools that you can put in your life right away. And it's enough to get started. Okay. So the first thing I want to start with is the same thing that my book starts with, which is by taking a moment to stop and reflect on what you mean when you say the word friend. In my research, I found out that people use this word in a lot of different ways. So they say friend and it means something different to one person than it does to the other. And suddenly the way that they're showing up in the relationship looks different and someone's frustrated. And it's like, well, maybe it's because we're operating with a different definition of what friend means. So take a moment right now. You can think about it in your head. You can write it down in the chat. You can write it down on a piece of paper if you want, but think about what your definition of friend is. And if you want extra credit, also think about what is the definition or difference between an acquaintance, a friend, and a bestie. A little bit different there. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat in case there's any questions. We'll have Q&A at the end, but you can drop questions in the chat at any time. We'll keep going. Okay, so with the question of what does friend mean, it's important to get clear about what you mean. I have a lot of different audits, but honestly, this is one of the most important. There's like proximity audit, frequency audit, but really being clear about what is your goal when you say that you want friends or you want better friendships. Like have a definition, because it's really not enough to take it for granted that everybody else understands and is using the language the same way that we are. And I'm going to tell you a story of a woman that I'll call Elle. I worked with her in my signature program, which is called Platonic Action Lab. And in the first week of our program, Elle did this friendship definition exercise. And interestingly, what she chose to add to her awareness wasn't just her definition, but she thought of a few people who she considered to be very good at friendship or who had a lot of friends. And she asked them what their definition of friend was. And this is what she discovered. She had been defining the word friend too tightly. And because of this, she was cutting herself off from multiple friends that were already in her life. So simply by taking the time to stop, look at who's around you, see who's there, see who you're curious to get to know more, and then extending a few thoughtful invitations, you could be just a couple steps away from adding more friendship to your life from people that you probably already know. Okay. So that was what Elle did. First week of working together. It was great. I'm not going to tell you what happened the whole 7 weeks with her, but I will tell you that she did walk away with more friendships, closer friendships, more clarity, and a lot more confidence when she moved forward into building her friendship community. We're going to keep going. So go ahead and take a guess in your mind right now at what you think the biggest mistakes are when people are making new friends. And you can tell me in the chat, like, what do you think is a big mistake people make when they're making new friends? Maybe it's like, ooh, didn't text back quick enough, or came to a party and like left after 10 minutes. I don't know. Someone said wanting too much time, not enough exposure. It's true. You need time with each other. All right, I'm going to go ahead and tell you. And the way that I am going to tell you is I wrote you a couple of emoji stories. So they're little four spot emoji stories to describe the two biggest mistakes that I see people making when they want to make new friends. See if you can figure it out. Mistake number one is because you're feeling a little anxious about meeting new people, or maybe your anxiety is lying to you and telling you that people don't want to be friends with you. You go to a gathering, go to an event, you go to a meetup, but you're kind of putting off closed vibes. You're putting off, I'm not really open vibes. And so you don't notice those connection opportunities that are right there. Like when someone asks you to sit with them and you politely decline, or they, ask if you want to hang out again and you're like, no, that's okay. Like if you are slowly, subtly like turning down connection opportunities and then you feel disconnected. And so then you leave alone. So that's one big mistake that I see is like letting this insidious, like falsehood, honestly, that people don't want connection stop us from showing up warm and open. And then the second mistake is because peopling is hard and the pandemic made our social skills really rusty, we stay at home all the time, like a self-imposed lockdown. And we're just hoping, crossing our fingers, hoping friendship will get better, hoping friends will just magically appear and we'll be besties. But we're really just in a self-imposed lockdown in our house. So I'm sorry, bestie. This is not the plan for how friendship is going to get better. Okay. Thank you, Molly, in the chat. That's so relatable. It doesn't work for romance. It doesn't work for tacos, and it does not work for friendship. You either need to go out and get it. You need to invite it in. There's no DoorDash for friendship, or you need to cook it up in the kitchen. Okay. You can stay home, but you can invite in some friendships. So we're going to talk about some ways to do that. But the questions I really suggest asking yourself right now are, how open are you? And how much effort are you willing to put in? There's a lot of different angles we could dig into on this if we had more time, such as ways to convey your openness to other people, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. There's different things you can do. There's small, medium, and big ways to express that openness. There's steps that you can take on your own when you're thinking of this effort question, like how much work is this? There's steps you can take on your own, but there's also ways that you can ask other people to help you. And that increases that amplifies your effort, but it's actually through getting other people to help. And there's ways that you can think about how the people who are already in your life can become a part of this goal actualization process for you. For now, just be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell me. You can tell your journal, look inside, answer these questions as honestly as you can. Because fun fact, the answers to these questions are observable by the people around you. They will notice if you are open or closed off. They will notice if you are putting forth effort to form that friendship and keep it going or not. So it's not just rhetorical questions. They're not purely for the sake of meditating on. The truth is these answers will shape your own actions, and they shape the way that the people around you respond to you as well. So think about it, write about it, think about it some more. I promise that if you choose to let your courage rise to the occasion on these things, it can be a really, really big shift for you. So one woman from Platonic Action Lab, who I'll call Kay, it wasn't me, it was another woman whose name starts with Kay. She said that this was the biggest thing for her. She said, I learned in Platonic Action Lab that being quiet, waiting for the perfect opportunity to arrive in front of me, and not taking chances are not the right way to make friends. I need to put myself out there and be willing to take risks in order to meet other people. And I will tell you, I worked with Kay pretty closely in the program, and she had a lot of anxiety and some really protective habits. She was being so protective of herself. And I was like, okay, like it's okay to be protective of yourself, but also you might have to leave your apartment sometimes. So there's this sense of like having that open mind, being willing to take a risk. As she said here, in the weeks that we worked together, she took some really big strides, made some big changes, but the biggest change she described was actually the one inside herself. So keep that as a reminder. We're going to keep pushing here. Right now, we're going to have a small commercial break for a little public service announcement. And it has to do with when we think about friendship as a problem that needs to be solved. So a problem, surely, is something that you want to fix or something that you are actively trying to come up with a solution for. If you are not trying to fix it and you are not willing to work on it, that's actually not a problem. That is an unsatisfying reality that you simply have to learn how to accept. But if you are ready to work on it, then it can be upgraded to a problem. And then after we solve it, it's upgraded to a former problem. But make sure that you know, like, if there's something dissatisfying to you about friendship, check in with yourself and be like, is it a problem, something I'm actively working on fixing and that I want to fix? Or is it actually just a reality that I just need to learn to accept right now because I'm not willing to work on that? Think about it. We're going to keep going. That's your public service announcement. Back to our regularly scheduled program. So when it comes to building lasting bonds, a lot of people say they want friendships that last forever. How do I build a friendship that lasts a lifetime? We have this like lifetime kind of like bar that we think means a friendship is the best ever. That may or may not be true, but it's very nice, right? So we think about building lasting bonds. And I have a surprise for you when you think about this. So there's a lot of things, thanks, Hannah, in the chat. There's a lot of things that you can do to nurture, fertilize, and keep your friendships going so that they turn into lasting bonds. These are some of them. Texting back, follow up, invite, extend an invite, accept an invite, ask questions, share all of these yummy things in the middle: joy, presence, rituals, grief, novelty, vulnerability. Go deep, do life stuff, apologize, forgive, right? There's a lot of things, but don't feel overwhelmed right now, because the shocker for you is that the most important thing that you do to build lasting bonds isn't any of these tangible actions. It's not any of these things on screen. These things on screen certainly are useful because they take something that's inside of you and they make it evident on the outside of you. But the thing that you most need to cultivate is commitment. Because if you don't have a strong sense of commitment, you're never going to do any of the things on that list, or you're going to do it in kind of like a wishy-washy way. And that lackluster sense of commitment is going to, people will pick up on it. It's kind of like, well, the house is standing, but the paint's peeling. It's like they can tell that it's not really being maintained. So if commitment is there, it needs to be strong. And if that commitment is really strong inside of you, it will be very easy to then demonstrate it on the outside of you as well. And this list, same list as before. It looks the same because it is the same. These are the same thing that you will do, but if you do them with a really strong sense of commitment, it's going to hit different. The person's going to really feel it. And sometimes we need to maybe be a little more transparent about our commitment because it's invisible. You can't see it in a picture on Instagram. You can't see it in a video on TikTok. And sometimes people get into a place of doubting whether a friend is committed to them. Like if they haven't heard from you via text for like a week or 2 or 3 or 4 or more, they might start to wonder if you're still committed to the friendship. And so you might want to open up and let them know, like if you're gonna like go silent for a while, maybe tell them this isn't because I don't care about you. I'm pulling off to work on my grad school application or something like that. And commitment, the other thing about it is that it's amorphous. It can't be measured from any one moment in time. And commitment will swell to fill the number of years that you allow it to flow into. So let it flow. You get to decide how you want to show your commitment, whether it's on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and over time. You can ask your friends what would feel good to them. Tell me, like, how do you know that I'm committed to this friendship? What do I do that makes you feel that way? It might be a really interesting conversation. And then you can also tell them what are the things that they do that help you feel that warm, fuzzy sense of commitment as well. All right, going to keep going here. Friendship is not just about the one-to-one relationships that you might have with a single specific person. It's also about the ongoing relationships that you have with the people and also places that surround you. Tell me in the chat if there's anybody here who's like really like jazzed about having more sense of community. So it's not just like one-on-one friendships. You're like, I want a sense of community. I want a sense of being a part of a group. I want a sense of feeling more belonging in my neighborhood, my town, etc. Tell me in the chat. Yes, yes, yes. Yep. Craving it. All caps. Yes, exactly. I'm not alone. We love this stuff. So when you think about cultivating this sense of community, I want you to think about, what are the spaces that are available to you? How are you using and occupying those spaces? How are you using your own space, whether it's your physical space, like where you live, or a virtual space if you're into doing online gatherings? Think about how you interact, not only with the people that you already know, but with the people that you don't know, with the strangers that might also pass through those spaces. Think about how you care for shared space and what kind of energy and vibe that you're carrying into shared spaces. Because the way that you inhabit a space affects how you experience it, but it also affects how other people experience it. You know, I think very like viscerally of like walking one time into a coffee shop and every single person was on their laptop with like headphones on. It was, you could hear a pin drop. It was silent, but the way that everybody was occupying that space told me this is not a place to hang out if I want a community vibe. And so I found a different coffee shop where people were chatting and making conversation and looking around them and not just scrolling the phone. So how you occupy this space affects how other people get to use it too. There's a lot more to this, which we have more time we'd get into, but I'm going to keep going. We're going to get in what we can fit in. I'm going to ask you now a question that I asked in my national friendship survey, which is, where do you usually spend time with your acquaintances? Is it inside or outside of your home? If you feel comfortable, you can share in the chat, or you can just think about it in your mind. Outside, all right. On walks, outside, coffee shop, outside. Yep, pretty unanimous. Okay, wineries, very nice. And where do you usually spend time with your close friends? Is it inside or outside your home? You can tell me on the chat. Might be similar, might be different. Walks with pets, inside and outside. Similar, both similar. Outside, inside. All right. So there's really no right or wrong answer to either of these things, but I'm going to ask you a new question today. Where would you invite someone to spend time with you if you wanted to transition them from an acquaintance to a close friend? Where would you invite them to spend time with you? Just curious. Tell me in the chat. Folks said, in my garden, at home, in the backyard, in my home, at the house, walking. Yes. All right. So as before, there's really no right or wrong answer. But in my research, I discovered some trends and patterns that are showing up even right here in the chat. So with acquaintances, we usually spend time outside of the home, coffee shop, bar, restaurant, park, walks, etc. With close friends, we tend to spend time inside the home, living room, deck, patio, balcony, garden, backyard, etc. And we live in a country where millions of Americans are walking around a little lonely, a little untrusting, and especially unsure about how to turn an acquaintance into a close friend. Let's think about that. If you and I were working one-on-one in coaching or in some kind of program, I would ask you to notice not only what you do with your friends and how you interact, but where you are when you spend time together. In my observation, we tend to underestimate the impact of the setting on the relationship formation, and we underestimate the impact of the setting on the pace at which depth can develop in a friendship or even in a single conversation. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story now about a woman that I will call M. M had a wish of and yes, some of us are not in America. It's true, Nat, but tell me if it applies elsewhere as well. All right, so I'd like to tell you a story about M. She had this wish of cultivating a community that shared her really hyper-specific passion, which is slow food and self-sufficiency. This is a flyer that I encouraged her to make. And when she was starting out, she was a little bit nervous about whether she'd be able to pull this off. It was a dream that she had from the previous city she lived in. She didn't do it. It's a dream she was still carrying to her new city. And she wasn't sure she could pull it together. And one reason why is because she had a really small apartment. And she wasn't sure that she could gather people. And this is a big mistake that I see people make. They think that their space is too small or too wrong, or they judge their space too harshly, and they assume that the room will be the reason why connection can't happen. This is not true. Do not let a room stand between you and your people. We can figure out how to make a space work for you. So working together, I encourage Em to still move forward with this plan, despite her concerns about her apartment being too small. Eventually, she got into it. She thought about how it might actually be fun if it was kind of crowded. So it's like, yeah, maybe the thing that feels like a limitation can actually be the thing that makes it interesting. And I worked with her. I said, just trust it. Just send out those invitations anyway. So she did a doodle poll, took the plunge, and the replies started rolling in. And when the replies started rolling in, Em checked in, and this is what she said. She sent the doodle. 6 people were slated to come. And she's wondering what's going to happen if they all come. It's a really small space. And then she's, like I said, she leaned into what if this challenge was actually an opportunity? She said it might feel cool to just like sit wherever you can find a space. We could feel young and rebellious. And that's actually the vibe I would enjoy. So the anticipation was building for the big event. And we're like, okay, like what's going to happen? On the day of the event comes around, and Em wrote me this really long update about how it all went. And I'm going to read you a snippet. It was quite long. I'm going to read you what it says. She said, first, the potluck. There were 6 of us in the end. 2 arrived first, who were cool women in their 50s. When one of them was cutting some bread, though, she cut her finger, but it was actually a magic moment. Even though she was bleeding, she was acting with such calm and ease, like she knew us closely. The other woman followed my advice on where to find paper towels because I was stirring food in the frying pan. It all felt so familiar and heartwarming, and I loved every second of it. And they're both coming back to my birthday party on the 31st. The other 3 younger people arrived afterwards. One of them is a soil scientist, and she's offering to lead local foraging walks. All in all, it was a good experience. After the potluck, one of the women and I hosted a study hall at the brewery, and we just couldn't stop chatting instead of working. The bartender kept coming by to collect glasses, and when I went for a refill, he told me he was listening to our homesteading conversation, and he was interested because he's taking on beekeeping. More members of the staff have expressed interest in the cafes where we meet, end quote. Every now and then, Em and I check in via email because I like to say, like, how's it going? What's happening? Send me some updates. And I kid you not, just this evening, she sent me another update. So I'm going to read this last little snippet here. She said, quote, my community garden is sprouting all over. I've had so many social engagements over the past week that I can't quite believe it. Gardening people, queer people, expats, another potluck at home tomorrow. And I'm going to meet a chef who's interested in using food as a social connector on Sunday. It's very inspiring and nurturing to see some fruits after all this effort. Thanks for being a catalyst in this process, end quote. So a lot of stuff is happening here for Em. This isn't even everything. Like we did 8 weeks of stuff together. There's all kinds of other stuff. She had a lot of big foundational changes, but that very, very first step of trusting her apartment to be good enough, trusting her space and bringing the things that she cares about, not only to her living room that she's sharing with other people, but to the spaces around her, having that conversation where other people can overhear her, chatting to the bartender, chatting to the other staff. All of this really broadened Em's sense of place and her overall sense of community and that sense of access to community. She made a bunch of new friends, obviously, that she's super aligned with. There's like soil scientists and chefs and all that's like perfect for a slow food self-sufficiency community. And she also has this expanded sense of belonging and connection to her third spaces, her local establishments, and those community gathering spots. So I want you to know that you can do this too. I saw a lot of people in the chat, whether you're in America or not, saying like, yes, I want community. Yes, I want community. You can do this. You can do this. If you don't know where to start, I hope this is helpful. I can also help you too. But for now, I want to take a moment, take a great big inhale, exhale, and notice which part of this has been the most useful for you. Is it defining friendship, being clear about that? Is it realizing when we might be making some accidental friendship mistakes early on? Or maybe we need like a mindset shift about how we think about something as a problem versus reality? Is it thinking about building lasting bonds? Thinking about ways to feel more to community? Tell me in the chat, like what part inspired you or motivated you or resonated with you. Would love to hear about it. And at the very least, whatever it is, whether you tell me about it or not, or whether you tell your cats or your pets or your like kids or your partner or friend about it, I hope that you will take whatever that aha moment is for you and that you'll decide today that for at least one thing, you're going to take one action that's going to help you take that aha moment and put it into practice. Like make an actual step, say something, extend something, offer something, or just show up in a space in a really open and warm way. Let's see, folks in the chat are saying defining friendship and thinking about community, building more community, thinking about community, especially my neighbors, current and future. Feeling inspired to take bold steps. This seems fun. Want to do what Em did, have to figure that out. Commitment, community building. Yeah, a lot of neighborhood connections. You deserve it. All of you do deserve it. So before we go to Q&A, I want to affirm that I would love to help you write your success story if this is something that you really want. So as I was mentioning, the examples that I shared were folks who've been a part of Platonic Action Lab, which is my signature program. And I really designed it to be a combination of this really high octane learning and also a group coaching experience. And so I teach you like the things that are the framework for turning those wishes into actions that have outcomes that get you closer to having that former problem that we talked about. It's not very hand wavy. As you can probably tell, I'm a very concrete person. So if you commit to taking action, you will absolutely start making progress right away. I'll give you a little bit of info about it. There is a core curriculum that I teach that has to do with friendship cultivation, community building, but it's also customizable. So if you have a very specific area of curiosity, we have the wiggle room to like customize it to that topic or that curiosity that you have. You get some like actual workshop sessions. And then we also have office hours, which are drop-in time, where if you just have a specific thing you want to like troubleshoot together, discuss, you can bring it. So there's kind of a informal time and then like formal time together. It's class and coaching at the same time. I'm going to drop the link in the chat in case you want to pull that up before the event closes or before we go to Q&A. And I'll tell you what else about it. So there's 8 sessions, 5 live workshops, 3 office hours, email support from me between sessions, replays of all the live workshops. I have a Mama Jamma 80-page guide that is full of like templates and scripts that you can use, invitation templates you can build on, tons of inspiring stories, a whole like glossary of action steps that you can take if you're like, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do first or where to start. It's power packed. And then you also get not only the connection with me and my support, but you also get the momentum from your fellow PAL members. This is a very small snippet of what former graduates of the program have said about it, feeling like it takes them to a place where they can use these tools and use them anywhere they go for the rest of their life. That's how I want it to work. Also acknowledging that it feels like a community in itself, feeling more connected to the ecosystem, feeling a lot less lonely or isolated, and making progress consistently, because that's a main tenet of it, is like every week we're taking an action, every week we're learning something new that we can then put into practice the next week. So normally when I work with folks one-on-one, my one-on-one coaching rate is $249 for 90 minutes. So for that reason, I consider Platonic Action Lab to be a ridiculous deal. You get everything in the program for 2 payments of $199.50, which, fun fact, is the price of a daily latte plus tip for 2 months. And instead, you get this. It's not a ginormous group. I keep it intimate on purpose so that everybody can get personal attention. Space is a bit limited. So if you want to request a spot, you can head to my website, weshouldgettogether.com/Platonic Action Lab with the dashes. And when you head there, if you request an RSVP, I have a few questions that I'll ask you just to confirm that we're a good fit for working together. And if you decide to sign up after today, I'll give you a discount for being part of Revel 11. So at the moment, I'm not doing one-on-one coaching in case that does come up for Q&A. I've really invested so strongly in this program because I believe it is the absolute best way to make progress. Research shows that when people run in community with other people, they actually run farther and they have better performance. And the same is true for when we chase down those connection goals together. If we're side by side, shoulder to shoulder, we can run farther. We can get a lot more done with a lot more success. So that's a bit about the program. That's an example of things that have been happening. We do have time for questions. I love to be in conversation with folks when I'm doing webinars like this one. So I invite you to share a question in the chat.
Yeah, and Cindy, Kat, that was fabulous, by the way. Thank you so much. I always learn so much from you every time we're together. Cindy has a question. Have you considered a branch of your business plan to have a group component for people to meet each other with common interests, like virtual coffee meetups?
Great question, Cindy. Yeah, so as part of my business, I do periodically do a platonic matchmaking event called Here to Make Friends. You can also find out about that at my website. It's very different than Platonic Action Lab. Some people are like, can you just introduce me to people? I'm like, yeah, I would love to. I play platonic matchmaker at very specific times and dates. And that is through the Here to Make Friends event. At that, so for example, I've held it over the last 3 years, and at the beginning, it was kind of like everybody can come and it's really great. It's like super intergenerational, coast to coast. We had people in the US, outside the US. And then over the last like year or so, I've had more requests for people who have like a more niche or specific request for who they're trying to meet. So for example, the last couple sessions of it I ran were for child-free folks. There was a lot of requests from the child-free community being like, I need to make friends with other child-free folks. And so we've had that. We had a Gen X millennial session. We had a session for people that are like artsy, craftsy, nerdy, fun people, which I'm one of. It's like so much fun to get together. And so there have definitely been a lot of common interests. But in that program, because I invest a lot of time in like a very exhaustive personal profile that I ask everybody to fill out. And then I literally go through hours upon hours of like memorizing everything about everybody and then matching them to who they would be the most compatible with. It's not the same as like a virtual coffee meetup or like the meetup for pug owners where you're just going to like chat to randos. It is like highly curated. And so for that reason, it's not free. It's $99. And if you want to be a part of that, you can get on the wait list on my website for the next Here to Make Friends event.
Well, that is just fabulous. And again, Kat, thank you so much. And I highly encourage you to get Kat's book. We should get together. So many great ideas, and or sign up for her class as well. For Revel 11, we're actually starting some more intimate gatherings starting this fall and going back to our roots of having, you know, a minimal 12 people, well, 11, because, you know, we have to do an 11 plus me gatherings called salons. And we'll be doing that here in Seattle. And so look out for that on revel11.com and also on all of our social as well. There's a couple of opportunities for people to join our community here locally. We have a summer soiree coming up next month. It's actually almost 1 month away on August 22nd, as well as we're having a walk on the waterfront here in Seattle. There's just so much going on the waterfront, and we're having a tour to see what's happening, and the aquarium's about to open. So that's a free event that you can join if you sign up on revel11.com. This is why we built Revel 11, is to build community, not only just here in Seattle, but around the globe. And we value your message so much, Kat. And in a time where we need connection more than ever, you are here, we're here, and there's so many opportunities for you to build your own community wherever you are, whether somebody said, you know, what Em had is what she wanted. Mike started, you know, in your living room, it doesn't matter, in the coffee shop, and just put it out there and see what happens. I mean, recently I had a neighborhood event here at my house, and I invited, you know, some women that I knew locally here to bring a friend. And it's like I met new people that have been in the neighborhood for a long, long time. So do it for yourself, do it for your community, and get together, make connections. There's really nothing better. So Kat, thank you for your message. May it spread around the globe and that we all become more connected. And thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have a great rest of your
Oh,
Tuesday.
can I say one last thing? Because there was
Yes,
one person's question
absolutely.
that didn't get addressed. So Analia
Oh,
asked in
sure.
the Q&A. Analia, what I'm going to do since we're wrapping up shortly is I'll answer your question on my blog and in my newsletter next week.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon on Revel 11 or in person here in Seattle. Take care. Bye, Kat.
Thanks,
Mwah.
everybody.
So great. Thank you.